This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Digital Trust Podcast. My name is Christian Redshaw. I'm your host, and we have back in this series of 2 episodes for a second time, Stephanie Craig, president of Kith. Stephanie, welcome back one more time.
Well, Christian, it is a pleasure to be with you. And as I mentioned on the previous episode, it's nice to be back with some of my fellow Canadians and getting to be both an American and Canadian is really a big thing for me. So I'm really thrilled to be with you.
That is awesome. Those of us who live on the more southern part of Canada, we're used to going back and forth into the States, but you were definitely in the snowy, more frozen areas. So I need to venture up there hopefully sometime. Picking up on what you were talking about with the forestry industry example and data breaches and cyber attacks, what level of responsibility do boards and organizations have for their shareholders and for their clients when it comes to handling these incidents?
Well, one of the things that people don't understand is that, a crisis incident will breach the trust of your stakeholders. And the trust of your stakeholders is what underpins your corporate reputation, your organizational reputation. And the fiduciary responsibility comes in because your reputation is worth 30 to 50% of your organization's value. And so as a business leader, if you are looking around and you see another asset that is 30 to 50% of your organization's value, you are going to protect it. And that's where the fiduciary responsibility comes in for the CEO, for the leadership team, and we're more and more seeing that it is becoming a purview of corporate boards. And it is their fiduciary responsibility to protect their reputation because it's valuable.
I love that. Reputation is an asset. And I think we talked about these numbers before offline, Stephanie. It can average about a third of the value of an organization is their actual reputation, depending on how you measure it.
Absolutely. And I think that there's so many different ways for people to look at crisis, but they have to start looking at it like it is a business decision, that there are costs and values and looking at how to invest in protecting your reputation is an investment in your business. It affects hiring, it affects investment, and it affects bottom line. And those are important things that you have to think about as a business owner.
Let's get into more of a positive tone here. Last episode, we talked about kind of things handled badly, what can go wrong, and the pain of things. And maybe we can start with speed. So I think the conventional wisdom would be faster is better when it comes to handling a crisis. Do things very quickly. Is there sort of an optimal pace, ideally, of how a crisis can be handled?
Whenever you talk to anyone that does what I do, or even kind of closely does what I do, they say that the speed at which you respond to a crisis is a differentiator. And we don't disagree, except for it can't be speed for just speed's sake. It has to be strategic speed. And what I mean by that is there's a formula that goes into a strategic speed. So it's clarity in your values as an organization, clarity in who you value, your stakeholders, and what they value, where they get their information, and how well they trust you, and overall what you stand for. So that's clarity. And then plus trust in the people, the procedures, and the policies that you have in place, that when a crisis hits, they're going to know what to do and your procedures are going to work as they should. And clarity plus trust equals that strategic speed, because you are not answering questions in the moment. You've already made a decision about what your values are as a company and who matters to
And
you.
these are things, as you mentioned last time, that you have control over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? You mentioned trust, how often trust comes up in so many different directions in business. It may be something that we want to start paying more attention to.
Absolutely. And that's something that we've seen eroding in the last decade is people's trust in institutions, people's trust in information. So figuring out who your stakeholders are, they may be your customers, they may be your clients. You have to figure that out and then building that trust with them. You can't just show up one day and say, "Oh gosh, we've leaked your data to a bunch of people. Now trust us that we're going to fix it for you." That trust has to be built.
100%. Could not agree more, Stephanie. Now, you gave some examples of how crises were handled poorly. Do you have any good examples of how it has been done right in your experience?
Absolutely. So we have a client that is a government contractor, and they have done the really important work on understanding and trusting. So they have they're a government contractor, so they have a lot of veterans that work for them. And it was the Friday before Veterans/Remembrance Day that their payroll provider called them and said, we're not going to be able to deliver your payroll. And so that's bad. That's bad for a lot of people. But when it is Veterans Day and your workforce is largely veterans and they're not going to get paid, it's a problem. But these folks, because they had done all of this work, they weren't dithering around with, are we going to pay them or are we not going to pay them? They knew that they were going to find a way to make sure that their workforce could make it through the weekend. And so they were able to jump in at lightning speed, so strategic speed. They made these decisions, they knew who their people were, they knew what they valued, and they knew that what their values were, that they were going to pay their people. So they were immediately able to jump in and set up a hotline, send out a message, talk to their internal people, because those people knew that if something like this happened, what to do. So they had the funds to support their people. So long story short, not many people had to take advantage of the fund they set up. The hotline only got a few phone calls, but fast forward 3 months, their employee satisfaction went up 15%. Their pride in working at this company went up. So not only did they avoid a crisis, because we all know if someone's not getting paid because it was a problem with their company, they're taking to social media. Not a single post by anyone. And because of the way they handled it, their employees were happier.
That's pretty impressive and actual measurable improvement in the midst of what couldn't be controlled. They had that strategic speed, and they were ready as much as they could be.
It is really something that we call a culture of preparedness. And it's not, we don't want people waking up in the middle of the night every day of the week with worst case scenarios running through their head. But it's an understanding that you have to prepare on a regular basis. And it doesn't have to be full blown big simulations, but you have to be regularly exercising. What's your chain of command? Does everyone understand our values? And then looking internally, if we know our values, are they communicated from the very first day someone sees an ad to come and join our company? Are they in the onboarding process? All of these different places that you can, reinforce what your values are, so it's not lost on anybody in your organization, and everybody is supporting a positive brand and a positive culture of preparedness.
I love it. How important is leadership in a crisis?
Leaders have to be present, but they have to understand they're not there alone. So one of the really important things that we recommend for any organization big or small, is that they create a core crisis team. And that core crisis team have one or two things. They have to have subject matter expertise or a capacity to make a decision, in a best case scenario, both. And then that group makes the decisions when it gets hot, let's say.
I think we've got just a couple of minutes left, Stephanie, and this has been gold so far. I wonder, because you've touched on the different scenarios and you've mentioned some elements, can you quickly list for us kind of piece by piece, what is the formula for effective crisis management, element by element? What are the ingredients of the cake?
Absolutely. Well, it's what I just said. It's the clarity on who you are, what you value, and who you value, and what they value. So clarity is made up of those things. And then trust that the people, policies, and procedures are going to work in the moment, and that everybody knows what they're doing. And then that equals speed. And then get out in front of this. While you are mitigating the crisis, you are already starting the recovery. That is the magic.
And then, of course, being prepared, of course, proactivity is the message. And then, of course, you have things like out-of-band communications. We touched on leadership, building that culture of crisis preparedness, and thinking about the decisions in advance, I guess, that you're going to have to be making,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Well, there's a concept called queuing, which is you can actually make more decisions in a longer period of time than if you need to make them one after another. So make sure you make the decisions, know the answers that you can find before you get there.
Love that. Last question. We have less than a minute, Stephanie. Do you have any special gift for our audience today? Any recommendations or a leave behind that you can give us?
Absolutely. Well, what we would want to do, we want to make sure people are equipped with tools to be able to do some of the things we talked about. So we'll create a page on our website for your listeners, and it's www.kith.co, no M, /digital trust. And there'll be some tools there for folks to do their own crisis preparedness.
So we'll make sure to put that link in the description.
Wonderful. Well, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Stephanie, and thanks for this great conversation as part 2 of the series. We really appreciate having you on here, and we also really appreciate the viewers and listeners who have invested their time and being part of this conversation as well. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.